Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, coming to you from the 2023 Fall Conference in Austin, Texas. Today we are having our awards ceremony where we're going to be honoring a number of individuals and firms for community service, scholarship winners, and of course for our QBS winner, Qualifications Based Selection. Of course, we share the award with NSPE each year, and we are very, very pleased to be joined by this year's winner, State Senator Clyde Chambliss from the State Senate of Alabama. Senator, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
It's nice that not only are you winning the QBS award this year, but you are also a professional engineer. You're a member of the industry, and you're one of the few people in politics, I'd say, elected both federally and locally, who actually understand what QBS is and why it's important. Tell us a little bit about your professional career first in engineering. Your firm, Chambliss Engineering, I understand, does a lot of municipal work. Explain, I guess, your background in engineering and kind of the firm and how it operates in the state.
Sure. I'm a civil engineer. And when I graduated from college, was fortunate enough to go home to be the assistant county engineer in my home county. I never thought that would be possible. I didn't know that opportunity would be there. So I was able to do that. And as a county employee, I kind of heard things about people using their position for, ordering parts and materials. And then one day I actually witnessed that firsthand. I went to each of my commissioners and said, told them what had happened, and they were all incensed and going to do something about it. A year later, they had not done anything about it, and I felt like it was my duty and obligation to do something about it. So I put my name in the hat for county commission and was fortunate enough to win that election. So we started from there, and then a few years later, because of the different changes and things of life, I decided to go into my own business, started my own firm back in 1999, and that provided me some flexibility to do the political things that I needed to do and wanted to do, and just worked in the municipal realm all these years, water, sewer, wastewater, stormwater, those type things, and it's always been an issue for me. Especially when I've been undercut by other engineers that don't have errors and omissions insurance, that have operate very, very low overhead, and people assume, they're an engineer, so they're
fine. They're going to be good as they.
It's all good. Well, it's not. We need to know that those that are designing facilities are not only have the health and life safety abilities to look at that, but are also covered when we make mistakes.
Exactly.
Because we're humans, and we do. So just all those things over the years really has pushed me to really be a staunch advocate for qualifications-based selection. And it's a good process. It's a tried and true process. It's not something that's new. We want to go to the best doctor for our particular ailment, and we need to go to the best engineer for our particular problem.
And it's that, and it's the law, Brooks Act. It is the law, and the state should follow it. That the project should be based on the qualifications of the engineer, the back work, their past work, competitive nature, not on cost.
Exactly.
And that is the most efficient use of taxpayer dollars to ensure the best result from the investments that's made. And you've been an advocate for that, and that's culminated, of course, in strong QBS legislation that was passed and signed into law by Governor Ivey. Explain that. I got to talk about that a little bit, getting to that point and having the law passed and signed into law, and now, what was that like for you?
Well, it's a process. And it's not something, I have this idea and you just go get it done. And we as engineers are more used to that. Here's the problem, here's the solution, let's go get it done. And that's probably why there's not as many engineers and technical people in politics as we need. And I would strongly encourage all of my colleagues out there, engineering-related colleagues, to get involved. And people ask me, well, how'd you do it, and that kind of thing. Well, get started at a committee, the planning commission, whatever, at the local level. There's always a need there. So that's how I kind of started getting involved in politics, and then advanced over the years. But the second part of that is, I guess number one, you got to be involved. Number two, you got to have relationships. You got to build relationships. And I've told my kids all of their lives, almost everything in life is about relationships. And you can like it or not, but that is the way it is, and you have to have those relationships. So when qualification-based selection comes to a body of 140 legislators in Alabama, I'm the only engineer out of that 140.
Exactly. You're the only one who's experienced it and understands it.
Exactly. So how do I help them understand the need for this? Especially when you have other folks out there, it's just anti-competitive, and they're just wanting to, so I have to explain it and help them understand. So number one, I have to kind of have a relationship with them before that. Right?
Exactly.
Because if they don't know me, how are they going to trust me? And that reaches out even if I'm not a legislator. If I'm an engineer, I have locally elected officials. You need to be reaching out to them, especially in the off season. Go to lunch, go to breakfast, coffee, whatever. Build those relationships so that when you do need something, you're not trying to introduce yourself.
Exactly.
That's very, very, I can't stress that enough. That is very important.
Because it also ties into business, because so many times engineers are not only problem solvers with a project trying to figure out how do we fix something physical or in the infrastructure, but every infrastructure improvement has a community benefit or has a community function where you have to also serve as that liaison to the community to explain why this is going to be an important thing. Exactly. And it's that the softer skills, which aren't taught in engineering school, of course. That's right. It's just like business and everything else, but it's those things that are essential to success. And to your point, building those relationships, especially with legislators and their staffs, explaining the situation, making them understand it and building that sense of trust is critically important, so that when you get to a point where you might see an opening to introduce a piece of legislation or to support a piece of legislation, they're already going to be with you.
Exactly.
And you just carry it over the line. I mean, being the only engineer in the state Senate, how difficult was it for you to bring your colleagues on board and to get them to understand? Were you able to kind of compare it to other professions and say, okay, well, you're a doctor or you own this kind of a business. Think of it this way. How did you approach those different professions?
You're right on target. You got to know who your audience is.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they have any engineering, like children that are engineers, parents that are engineers, that helps.
Yeah.
Because you can talk in their language, they understand it a little bit better. Most of the time, that's not the case. They don't know anything about qualification-based selection. They don't know anything about engineering. Yeah. So you have to formulate some type of strategy that will help them understand what you're saying. So one of those strategies that I employed was talking to someone, and let's say this is someone that has no family or no background in engineering whatsoever. I would talk to them in a medical type terminology. Well, here's the analogy. I go to my doctor and I say, I've got a really, really bad stomach ache. How much will you charge me to fix it?
Yeah.
Well, the doctor has no way of knowing how much to charge you, because you could have indigestion that's solvable through a 2 or 3 penny Tums,
or appendicitis,
or a kidney stone, which I have right now.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit more advanced, but not life-threatening. Or you may have something that is very, very life-threatening.
Yeah.
And it depends. You have to do some type of assessment to understand what the situation is, so that then you can provide the best solution. And it's exactly the same way for engineers. Client has a problem. Well, you've got to figure out some things before you know what the best solution is.
Yeah.
Well, that figuring out of things is the design process.
Exactly.
And then it's plenty. It's great at that point to go out and get best pricing and that kind of stuff from the construction aspect.
Yes.
But on the design aspect, you don't want your doctor trying to, worry about money and this and that, trying to figure out your solution. You want to know what the problem is and what the solution is. Yeah. And it takes qualifications to do that. And Same way with engineering.
Yeah, and then extrapolate that to a bridge that's going to have a 100-year lifespan that's going to carry X amount of people and tonnage and freight and cargo over its lifespan. So what are you going to do in the design process? It's just not as simple. What is that bridge going to cost me? It's going to cost X. It's like, well, no. Sure. Let's find the best solution that's going to be the best option for the,
Well, and that reminds me of another kind of scenario that I talked through with several of my colleagues, especially the surveying community.
Yeah.
In Alabama, we're governed by the same board, the same laws. And there is a huge difference between retracing of a lot in a platted subdivision and doing a design or survey for a bridge design.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of difference.
Significant.
So in Alabama, we had to work through some of those things, because do you want to do a full-fledged qualification-based selection process for that platted subdivision?
Yeah.
Well, that process costs more than the service.
Exactly.
So where is
it has to be flexible and it has to be scalable.
Exactly.
Right, and you have to have the ability to say, okay, well, to your point, it's a level of complexity, right? So it's for a survey, for a plot, for a housing development, okay, that's a little bit more straightforward. But when you're dealing with a bridge, you're dealing with an overpass or replacing a pipe system that needs to be replaced, that's a whole level of complexity if it's different.
Exactly.
And you have to have the flexibility to still be able to choose based on the specifications of the job, and not be hamstrung by some artificial barrier for price.
So in Alabama, where we settled, and I know every state's different, but where we settled was, if it is a survey for just a boundary, that does not have to go through a QBS process. Anything above and beyond that does have to go through a QBS. So is that ideal or the best? I don't know, but that's where we ended up through all of our negotiations.
But it's compromise.
It is.
And you find that when I used to work for Chairman Schuster on T&I committee, you used to say that if you get 60% of what you want, that's a massive success. If you get 40%, you can walk away smiling. You're never going to get 100%, but you got to find that place where everybody comes together. And that's where that education effort takes place and why it's so important to be engaged. And I'd say to our members, that's why it's important to be politically engaged with your members of Congress and your state legislatures, because if they have the basis of knowledge, you're able to negotiate better at the end of the day than coming in cold trying to get people educated and all of a sudden out of nowhere.
That's right. And it goes back to our earlier comments. If those people that you're trying to influence, whether it's legislators, local elected officials, code agencies, whatever, if you have that relationship and that trust before you need to ask the question, it is so much better for everybody, for them as well. So
absolutely.
Build those relationships.
We can't stress that enough. Congratulations on the award. I think it's a perfect example of a state. You've led the charge for this. You've gotten it across the finish line. It's signed into law. It's a reasonable, smart QBS bill that passed and is now law. So how's it feel, I guess, personally to get some recognition for it?
Well, honestly, I'm very, very honored, but I also feel like this is not an individual effort. There are a lot of people who put a lot of effort into getting us to that point. People that did a lot of things that I couldn't do, like some of the language and all the, Roger Gillen, he was with Volkert at the time. I mean, a rock star when it came to sitting with me and with my colleagues who had issues and talking through all of that. And then he helped write the language that satisfied, that middle ground, that compromise. and compromise has a negative connotation sometimes.
But when you reach it, it shouldn't be a negative. That's the thing. Compromise shouldn't be negative because it means that you've worked through a lot of hard things and you've found a solution to complexity.
Well, and I like to tell people, you don't compromise your ethics and your morals.
Yeah.
You don't compromise those. Mm-hmm. Other than that, most everything you have to compromise in life. And, the other partners, like NSPE, Renee Casillas in Alabama, she's just a rock star with us as getting this passed and coordinating. Just, you all know her and all that she does. And just, and I'm sure I'm leaving out people right now on the spot, but other practicing engineers, Randy Horton in Alabama, that did a lot of work. A lot of help, and we had a particular person in a related profession that had the ear of our pro tem, and Randy Horton did a lot of work with our pro tem to help him understand so it was a lot of people working together. It wasn't a single person. It takes a team effort to do this kind of thing, and any other state that needs to put this type legislation in place, it will take a team effort there. And anything I can do to help, let me know. I
look at Alabama as an example, and to see how it all came together, and it's not impossible. I mean, it looks like you might have if you're in a state which is has kind of an anti-QBS bent to the legislature, or you have, it's not impossible. You just got to do it the right way.
That's right.
And it can happen, and I think it's a testament to that fact. So congratulations again, Senator Chambliss. Look forward to seeing you at the awards luncheon a little bit later today, where we can officially honor you on the award. And thank you for all your work on behalf of the people of Alabama, and of course as an engineer in the engineering industry. So really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. It's just an honor for me to be here and just receive this recognition on behalf of all of the folks who had a hand in making this happen.
Well, fantastic. And thank you for joining us. This has been a episode of Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, coming to you from our 2023 Fall Conference in Austin, Texas. And our coverage is brought to you by HDR, fantastic sponsors of our program and keeping our podcast going. So thank you again for sponsoring HDR, and we will see you next time.